Hello, this is Jill Slinker. Thank you for volunteering to be your host site central scorekeeper for the Academic Quiz Bowl. This webinar will give you the information that you need to perform your duties. I'm not going to assume that you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the workings of Quiz Bowl, so I want to start with some basics so that you know what you're looking at on the round score sheets. To begin with, each round consists of 20 toss-up questions, and then there's a substitution that could happen with team members. You don't really need to worry about that, but that's indicated by a different color on the question number, so just in case you were wondering. Each toss-up question is worth either 15 or 10 points, depending upon when it is answered. If the question is answered before what is called the power mark, which is indicated by an asterisk, both on the question itself and by the scorekeeper on the answer sheet, then the team will be awarded 15 points. The reader will indicate if the team received the power points by saying power after the team is answered. If the question is answered correctly after the power mark, then the team will earn 10 points. If a team interrupts the reader before the question is finished and gets the answer wrong, then they will receive a negative 5 points, also called a neg 5. The team who answers correctly will get the opportunity to answer 3 bonus questions. And there's a spot for those 3 bonus questions on the answer sheet. Those are worth 10 points each. The other team does not have a chance at these questions. Okay, this last bullet really doesn't make a difference to you as a scorekeeper. They buzz in, they answer on the bonus questions. The whole team can collaborate to provide the answer. Okay. I've also created a webinar and posted a webinar for the room scorekeeper. And while watching this one as well is not really absolutely necessary, it will help you know what the room scorekeepers have been instructed to do on the sheet. If they don't follow directions, you can then address the situation with them. I'll reference the information you will need throughout the rest of this webinar, but hey, it can't hurt for you to have that information as well. Let's start with the paper score sheet that you will be receiving from the room scorekeepers. We updated this score sheet for the 2022 contest. Now, you'll see here an example of a completely filled out score sheet. The ones that you will receive will be handwritten, so I hope that they'll be filled out neatly for you. But if you can't read something on the sheet, you should contact the scorekeeper for that room to clarify it for you. I would suggest when receiving the score sheets from the runners, you immediately check for certain things. One, check to see that it is neat and legible and there's nothing that you are unsure of there. 2, check to make sure that the round number and the room number have been marked, that they have marked their powers, and that they have the signatures from all of their team members as well as the scorekeeper. If they're missing any part of this, go ahead and send it back to the room to get the vital information with that score runner so that they can get it to the scorekeeper while the match is still fresh in their memory. There are 3 basic parts to the score sheet. The header, that's going to contain the round number, the room letter, the team member names, the team names, at the top. The body then will contain the scores for each of the 20 toss-up questions and bonus alternates. So you have a column essentially for each team. And then the question number is in the middle column. So you'll see TQ number, so that's the toss-up question number, 1 through 20 in the center column. The colors change at 11 because that is when the students can substitute in someone else to play. So it just gives the scorekeeper a little bit of a heads up there. Each team has a column for toss-up, and then 15, 10, or neg 5 is the score possibility. Then they have a column subdivided into 3 columns for the bonuses, so 10 points per bonus question. Then there's a column where you can add together your toss-up and bonus questions, and then a column to keep a consecutive score or a cumulative score going round per round so that it helps in the long run. And then the footer contains the information on total score. You have the winner, the loser. You have the signatures from the captains and the scorekeeper, and then you also have the powers achieved. We'll take a closer look at that here on the next slide. Now let's take a look at this information on the score sheet a little bit more closely. As the scorekeeper, you are going to need information pretty much from the top and the bottom of the screen or of the sheet. You want to make sure that the scores themselves on the sheet are logical, that they didn't misadd, but your focus will be on the top and the bottom. So you're going to need to know the team names, and those will be contained at the top of the column, north and south for this team. You need to know the round number, and you also should know the room number in case you need to send the material back to the scorekeeper to clarify something for you. You need to know whether they won or lost and the scores. Now, winner is going to be printed on both sides, and the scorekeeper is instructed to circle the team that actually won. Most of the time, this is going to be obvious because of the score, but if there is a tiebreaker, that can be a bit of a challenge. You also will have them circle the number of powers, or not circle, but they will have indicated the number of powers achieved. If they do not write this, that's something that you can determine pretty easily. It's just by counting the number of 15s in the column above, or the number of asterisks that they put in the column. So, each time they get a score of 15, they get a point for a power, not a point, but a mark for a power achieved, and that goes on the powers achieved line. All right. So now you're actually going to record the scores on the Google Central score sheet that has been shared to you by your host. We at the central office set up everything on the score sheet that you're going to need. We populated it with the teams that are going to be at your site. All you will have to do is enter the scores for the round robin rounds and for the tournament rounds. That's your job here on this central score sheet. So what are you going to need to access? There are 3 tabs on this sheet. There are multiple tabs on the sheet, but there are only 3 tabs that you need to access. The first one is the one at the far left, and that is the Round Robin Scores tab. Here is where you're going to enter all of the official scores and data for the round robin portion of the competition. This competition, or this portion, takes place in the morning. You need to enter the scores round by round as you get them, because it's these scores that determine what the seeds are going to be for the bracket tournament in the afternoon. So they have to be up to date and ready to go at the end of the final round of round robin. So don't wait and try to do it all at once. It has to be done round by round. The second tab that you may or may not access is the team, or the number team bracket. Now, you'll have to scroll to the right to find this. Depending on your site, you'll choose a different tab. If you have a 10-team site, you'll choose the 10-team bracket. If you have 7, you'll choose 7. If you have 8, you'll choose 8. These have been set up so that the round robin scores that you've put in the morning will calculate what the first round of the bracket tournament will be in the afternoon. Now, you can project that if you wish, and you can type in as it goes. But what I will tell you is that the information that you put on this tab won't go anywhere. This is not an official score tab. This is just the bracket so that people can see who's playing who in what room. Now, you may type stuff in there. You know, you may just print it out and post it for people and then do it by hand as you go along. But the official scores do not go in that sheet. The official scores go in the tournament scoring tab, which is back to the left. This is where you're going to record the official scores and the data from the afternoon bracket tournament at the end of the competition. Only the afternoon scores will be recorded on this tab. And it's important that you record all of that information on that tab, because that's what we use to determine state finalists. So let's take a look at an actual scoring sheet. Okay, we made a template of a scoring sheet just for this webinar. So let's take a look at that. As I said, you're only going to be accessing 3 tabs. The first one is the round robin score tab. So let's take a look at what you would do there. We're assuming that you've worked all the way through here. You see that we have 5 teams. We've already recorded round 4, up through round 4, but I kept round 5 so that I can show you what you need to do on your record here. So we look at this and we get all of our teams and we determine what we need to do. Now you'll notice that there is a #ref error here. Well, that means that you have to have something in this box for all of the formulas to work. So we need to make sure we finish out what we're doing. You'll notice also that we originally wrote this program so that we had up to 16 teams at a site. Well, if your team does not have 16 teams at a site, then everything that you don't use, we will have already zeroed out. Okay, we zero out everything that you don't use so that all the formulas still work like they're supposed to. So let's say our team number 1, lost their round for round 5. So they lost their round 5 match. If you notice, I just put in a 0 for a win under that. They lost it. Well, if I type in 0 for win, it automatically is going to put in a 1 for a loss. I could do it the opposite way too. Let's say our team 2 here. I could just put in a 0. They won. I could put in a 0 for the loss, and it should. It won't necessarily automatically put it in, but you put in the win, the loss from there. So team 1, you also look to see their score. They got a 185 for that, and they achieved 1 power. Our team 2, who won their match, it wasn't against team 1, but they won their match with just a 110 and 1 power. Team 3 in this match had a bye. Every time you have an odd number of teams at a site, they will have a bye. Somebody will have a bye each round. You cannot just leave it as it is. If you do that, you will still have an error message in the total at the end. So we have to put in something. So what we put in is a 0 for everything. Now notice it automatically puts a 1 when you put a 0 for the win, but you can override that and put a 0. So I've put a 0 in for each of their data points, and then we're fine. It's going to fix everything at the end. So our team number 4, they did not win their match. They were the team that lost to the team that got 110 points. They only got 90 points, and they did get 1 power. And our final team, our team here, team number 5, they won. And they're kind of a powerhouse team. They got 300 points, and they got 3 powers in that. So here we have what the scores will look like. You know, there's a variety of score types. They will all end in either 0 or 5. And then we have our totals, our total wins, our total losses, the score, the powers, etc. Now, since this is a complete, you'll scroll right on the bottom until you find the bracket for how many teams that you have at your site. We have 5 teams. I click on the 5-team bracket. And if you'll notice, I have my number 4 and 5 team have to play a quarterfinal match to get into the semifinals. And then we have team 1, team 2, team 3, seed 1, seed 2, seed 3, have populated automatically into the semifinal match. So you as a host or you as a scorekeeper don't need to worry about doing that. It does it automatically for you. So I'm going to move this bracket over just a little bit because I'm going to use it here when I, there we go. I'm going to use it here when I do the afternoon scoring. So this is the tab that I told you that whatever you enter on it isn't going to make any difference to any other tab or any final score. So this is just really for display. And so that the teams know where they will compete, who they're competing against, and you can kind of follow them through the bracket. So just so that we have information to look at. So we have the South team and the West team. Let's say that the South team for this match got 250 points. The West team got 120. So the South won that match. And they then advanced to play in the semifinal against the Sun team. So then we have our semifinal matches. The Sun team, as we said, they're kind of a powerhouse. They rocked it, and the South only ended up with 120 points there. The East team got 200 points, but the North team got 350 points. So the North team advances. So we're going to advance the Sun team and the North team to the finals. And as we in Indiana know, Sun wins out over North every time. So we have our Sun team with, 590 points in the final, and our North team with only 120 points in the final. So we have our area winner as Sun. So these scores aren't going to go anywhere. This is just display. And there are more bits of information you're going to need for your afternoon data entry. But that entry is going to be done on the tournament scoring sheet. So let's click on that. Unlike the round robin sheet, you need to fill this sheet out all at once, not round by round. The information is given basically for the entire team, not necessarily for each particular round. So we need to do it that way. So it's much easier to just follow along with the tournament as it goes, gather all of the answer sheets, and at the end of the tournament, enter the data onto this sheet. Because that way you're only doing it one team at a time rather than trying to do it round by round. So the first thing that you need to know, there are no opening rounds. The opening round column you only use if you have 9 or more teams at your site. If you have 9 or more teams, you'll have competitors in an opening round. But most of the time you are not going to have that. You're going to start with the quarterfinal points. Well, if we remember when we look at our team bracket, we only had 2 teams in the quarterfinal matches. The rest of them went directly to the semifinal. So these 2 teams, South and West, in the quarterfinals, will be the only scores that you will have there. So if I look back here at the quarterfinal, we have South had 250 and West had 120. So I could say South 250 and West 120. All right. Well, for the quarterfinal, this means that West is done because they lost this match, so they're not moving on. So for semis, they get a 0. For finals, they get a 0. So let's say we also have, powers, and then they got 1 power. Well, they're not going to get any powers in the matches that they don't play. So we also put a 0 here. You do not need to put anything in a column before they have any score. So if they start in semi, you don't put anything in quarter. If they start in quarter, you don't put anything in open. But everything after their first score, you need to fill out with either a score or a 0. All right. But we know that our South team went on to the semifinal. So let's see how they did. Our South team in the semifinal achieved 120 points, but they lost the match. So that's going to be their last match. So we go back here. South got 120, right? But they didn't make it to the final, so they got a 0. So in the semis, let's just say they got 2 and 1. Oops, 1. Okay. Now, here's the thing. We still need to fill in the wins and losses for our teams. So we start with our South team, right? South team played 2 matches. They won 1 and they lost 1. So I'm going to go over here and type in a 1. Now it's going to say 0 losses and 1 match. Well, I need to put in the score for the second one. So we had 1 win, 1 loss, 2 matches. And it's going to then people what's needed to do. This poor team, okay, our Western team lost the first match. So they have a 0 for wins, 1 loss, 1 match. So they're done. Let's go back. Right? We were on the Sun. We know the Sun team also played in the final match. And they won the final match. So you have a semifinal score and a final score for them. They had 590 in the final. All right, so that's Sun. We go back here. We haven't put them in yet. Oh, let's go back. So we need a 590 for the final and a 600 for the semifinal. So Sun got a 600 and a 590. All right. So notice I didn't put anything in quarters or open because nobody's there, quarters because we didn't start there. So 600 and 590, we have 2 matches that they played. They won both matches. So they got a 2, a 0, and a 2. Okay. So we've done Sun and we've done South. We need to do East and North now. So East in the semifinal match lost the match with a 200. North got a 350. Okay, so 200 and 350. East semifinal 200. North 350. Okay, so 200, they lost that match. So they only played 1 match, even though it was in the semifinal. They lost that match, so they got a 0 for wins. 1 match, 1 match. North won that match, so that put them into the final. So in the final, they got 120, but they lost to the Sun team. So they played 2, they won 1 and lost 1. So final points, 120. They played 2, won 1, lost 1, played 2. Okay, so now we have all of our scores there. Notice, oh, there's something wrong, right? I didn't put powers in, maybe where I should have. And this is blank. If it's over here before scores are put in, that's fine. But after scores, if there's no score, you need to put a 0 in. Okay? So let's say this team got 1 power. They got 0 powers because they didn't compete in the last one. Oops. This one has to have 0 powers because they didn't compete in the last one. And this one would have like 3. And this would have 4 powers. Okay. So notice we've got them with the powers. Right. Semifinal 1. Okay. So quarterfinal power. They played in the quarterfinals. So they got 2. All right. So this essentially should match what's on the left in pattern. So if there's a score here, there should be a score here. If there's a score here, there should be something here, whether it is a 0, 1, 2, whatever that is supposed to be. If you'll then scroll over to the right, you'll notice the information that essentially that has been tracking. We're looking for the average score in the bracket matches, the average powers in the bracket matches, the highest match score in the bracket matches, and the highest single match number of powers in the bracket matches. The top 2 teams from each site will automatically get a bid to go to the state competition, but we have other spots that we can fill as well, and we will fill those spots based on the scores in these last 4 columns on the page. Now, on the day of the competition, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, jslinker@iasp.org. I will be monitoring the score sheets from, I'll be monitoring my email and the score sheets from all 5 of our sites on that day. And if you email me with any issues that you have, I can generally get to them very quickly and we can get any of those issues resolved for you. I do have a live view of your score sheet because we are using Google Sheets. So that will help in getting any issues resolved quickly. Thank you again for volunteering to do this. I think you'll notice that once you start, it's not that difficult to get it done, but it does help to know what you're doing before you start. We can't do these competitions without volunteers like you. So again, thank you very much for volunteering. Have fun.